A very special welcome to all of you who have joined this, the fifth in our series of Tehillah Fractured World, of promulgating and deepening and disseminating the beautiful teachings of Moreinu Arav, Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, Zatzal, who we all miss so much. His wonderful teachings, as we know, continue to inspire people all over the world. In recent years, as I always mention, has been translated. In fact, this is the impetus for this, is that in recent years, his writings, many of them have been translated into Hebrew, and indeed our partners in this particular initiative, Yisrael Kristal and the members of the HaChevra LeCheker HaMikra, who themselves learned Rabbi Sacks's works and have shirim on Rabbi Sacks's works in Hebrew, and have partnered together with us to have this memorial series and to continue to learn and disseminate the words of the beautiful and deep teachings of Rabbi Sacks. Forgive me today, I am on the road. I've stopped the car, but I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity to introduce my friend and somebody so well known to all of us, Rabbi Yehudah Glick. It's so lovely to see you, Rabbi Yehudah, and I just want to thank you. I want to thank you because everything you do, even the name of your institute that I'm looking behind you is the Shalom Jerusalem Foundation. Even though you're involved in things which are controversial, not everybody goes up to Har HaBayit, there are different views, but when it's led by a person like Rabbi Yehudah Glick with the Noam, with the sense of Shalom, he is such a mensch. When he was in Israeli politics, it was so nice to see a politician of a different kind, a politician which didn't engage in the regular palganut that we're seeing so much today, but just the ability to bring people together. You can have strong views, but you can be respectful of other people's views. And that is Rabbi Yehudah, an activist who also loves people, loves all people, respects people even if they differ with him, but vociferously and clearly puts forward and activates the things that he believes in so much. And I just want to thank you, Rabbi Yehudah, because we've done many, many programs for our communities around the world on all types of issues. You always make yourself available. Sometimes you've been in the car. This time I'm in the car. You always make yourself available. We want to thank you for giving this the fifth in this series on behalf of all of us at World Mizrahi and HaChevra LeCheker HaMikra to speak about on the teachings of Rabbi Sacks on why the Parshiyot of the Mishkan so detailed, and how appropriate for you to speak about this, because you spend so much of your life about deepening the kesher to Makom HaMikdash, to the place of Shekhinah, and doing so much for the sake of appreciating Makom HaMikdash and Makom HaShekhinah, and therefore it's so appropriate that you are speaking about this particular aspect. We thank you for your time and look very forward to learning from you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Rabbi Yehudah Glick. Thank you, Rabbi Yehudah.
Thank you very much, Rav Doron, and it's really a pleasure and an honor and a privilege to be able to speak in the memory of the late Rabbi Jonathan Sacks. So I want to mention that I have the privilege of joining, also thanking the initiative of my father-in-law, general director of the Chevra, and I definitely commend you on the wonderful project, and thank you for allowing me to share with you. So for those of you who don't know the Glick, as Doron mentioned, I stand today head of the Shalom Jerusalem Foundation, which deals with the central Jerusalem in general, and the Har HaBayit and the temple in more specifically. And I would like to speak today about a topic which has to do with one other thing I'm involved in very much. Besides running the Shalom Jerusalem, together with a great Israeli Jewish scholar and leader, we run Irim, which means the young widows and orphans. It's the organization. I do it together with one of Israel's greatest leaders and initiators. I'm referring to my wife, who is the one who established the organization, and she runs it, and I'm beside her. And I'm mentioning that because it'll have to do with the teaching I will be teaching today, and I hope Hashem in the right way. I also want to mention, I see my father is here, is also participating, and it's definitely a privilege and an honor, because everything good about me, my parents. So I will go on, and I would like to, if possible, I'm going to try to share a 1 second. See if I can find it. I hope no, it's not working right now. Let me see. I'm going to be able to. Where I want to see. Let me see if I can see how I can share. Not working right now. Second, excuse me. 1 second. I'm not managing to share. I don't know why. Let me see how I'm able to share. Why it's not working right? I don't see the here to share. Maybe the host is here and he can help me share. 1 second. For some reason I'm not managing to share what I have here prepared. Let me just see what I can do here. I'm trying to see of sharing. I don't see the option of sharing here right now. Can you see now the what I'm sharing with you here? The PowerPoint, I think it looks like it's here. You can see it. It's right now. I'm sorry. Here. Okay. If you can see it now. Okay, great. Okay. The topic of the lesson I will be talking about was why are the Parshiyot of the it's, as I said, memory of Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, and I will just begin with showing a few quotes where Rabbi Sacks and several of his teachings referred to. The teachings can be found either on, of course, rabbisacks.org, and they also appeared in the website of Aish. They appeared in the Herzog VBM, and they also appeared in Chabad. As I said, Rabbi Sacks went through this question several times, and I'm reading just a few of the quotes. The universe takes a mere 34 verses. Of course, we're talking about Bereshit Perek Aleph, together with the first 3 verses of chapter 2, the making of the Mishkan, takes hundreds of verses, considerably more than 10 times as long. Why? Torah goes into so many details, so many, every single vessel, every single one of the vestments of the Kohanim, every single
document.
Yes.
We can't see the PowerPoint. We can only see your browser. You need to just do a new share.
PowerPoint. It says here I am screen sharing right now. I know why you can see it.
Right, we can see your Chrome browser. We can't see your PowerPoint.
Do you see you don't see the
No, we can see your Chrome browser. We can't see your PowerPoint.
what I'm reading from?
No, we can only see your Chrome browser. We can't see what you're reading from. Try sharing the screen again, choosing a different window.
You only see my browser on. Just see. I did share screen. It says you're screen sharing right now. Oh, let me see. It says that I'm screen sharing right now. I don't know why it's not working. Let me just try the screen. What can you see now?
Yes, we can see now. That's great. Thank you.
Okay, here. So the sequence of the Parshiyot, I'm reading another one. Parshiyot that begin with Truma and continues to Tzaveh, Kitisa, Vayakel, and Kudei is puzzling in many ways. First, it outlines the construction of the tabernacle, the portable house of worship the Israelites built and carried with exhaustive and exhausting detail. The narrative takes almost the whole of the last third of the book of Exodus. Why so long? Why such detail? Again, Rabbi Sacks is asking again and again, why does the size of every vessel, what it's made of, where it stood, what it served? We see that nothing else in the Torah is dealt with in such length. Here we have time where he's again asking, given that the length of any passage in the Torah is a guide to the significance it attaches to an episode of law, why devote time and space? Asks this question, and he gives several answers to this question. I will share with you a few of the answers he gives. A sheer length and detail of the narrative signal its central significance to the Israelites. So first of all, he says the reason the Torah is bringing this thing at length is because it's very important. It has almost a third of the mitzvot of the Torah. So this is a very important thing, but still this does not really give us a full answer. Why of all talks about is the Mishkan is so detailed. Here's another answer. He goes on and he said there's only one solution: to make the people co-architects to get them to build something together, to shape them into a team and show them that they are not helpless, that they are responsible and capable of collaborative action. Genesis, God creating the universe as a home for human beings. Exodus ends with the human beings creating the Mishkan as a home for God. So here, Rabbi Sacks says that the solution is actually very simple. The people are to create, supposed to be their own destiny. They're to go to build something together. They're not going to receive God making them something. They are to do it by themselves. Hashem created the world, Hashem to create a home for Hashem. Hence, the basic principle of Judaism that we are called onto, co-created with Hashem, and hence to the corollary where leaders do not do the work on behalf of the people. They teach people how to do the work themselves. It's not what God, but what we do for God that allows us to reach dignity and responsibility. Here, Rav Sacks is saying that this is a basic concept of of Judaism. We have to do the things. We can't wait for Hashem to do it. We have to do it. It's an interesting point, especially because many in the past centuries in Jewish traditions believe that the third is something that's created by Hashem, will come down fully built from heaven. But here, Rabbi Sacks specifically says the idea of the Mishkan, the idea which again repeats again and again, again and again, is a concept that we have to do it. And the Torah is trying to teach us. And not only that, the Torah wants us to build our own. Part of us, the fact that the Shekhinah rests upon Am Yisrael, is because we are the co-architects of this destiny. So what he's saying is that the Mikdash is something that created, and to build, or he actually describes, and he says he met Tony Blair on the plane, and he says to him, listen, the creation of the world is so short, 6 days, because that's something easy for Hashem to do. But for the people to create a Mishkan for Hashem, that's something very difficult, and therefore the Torah elaborates so detailed. Then there's more answer that Rav Sacks refers to, and it says this: the universe is vast. The sanctuary was small, a modest construction of poles and drains that could be dismantled and carried from place to place as the Israelites journeyed through the wilderness. The answer is profound. The Torah is man's book of God, an infinite, omnipotent creator to make a home for humanity. What is difficult is for human beings and their attitude and vulnerability to make a home for God. Yet this is the purpose not only of the Mishkan in particular, but the Torah as a whole. What he's saying here is that the whole idea of the Torah, is that it's man's book of Hashem. It's our book. And that's why it doesn't see a reason to talk in so length about the creation of the world. The Torah wants the idea, it's God's book of mankind, it's God telling us what to do. And that's this highest level of thing. There is nothing greater for man to do than create a home for Hashem. So for 6 days of Chol, God makes space for us to be created. On the 7th day, that is Kadosh, we make space for Hashem by acknowledging that we are His creations. And what applies in time applies also in space. There are secular places where we pursue our own purposes, only places where we open ourselves fully and without reserve to God's purposes. What Rav Sacks is saying so far, and mainly in the concepts he says, it's a very important thing. It's a concept of what we can do for Hashem. It's a concept that the Torah's the whole basic of the Torah is what we do for Hashem. And what applies in time applies in space. That means there are secular places which our purpose is to allow Hashem to fully divine rest, divine. And now that takes us to the final sentence, which in my eyes is where I want to concentrate on. If this is so, we have before us an idea with life transforming. The highest achievement is not self-expression, but self-limitation, making space for something other and different from us. The happiest are those in which each spouse makes space for the other to be his or herself. What Rav Sacks says here, this whole concept of not only that we are creating a home for Hashem, we're actually ourselves. He's taking here a Kabbalic idea that what we are doing in building a Mikdash is tzimtzum. We're limiting ourselves to allow space. So what he points out, and he points out something very great, is that the people of Israel, in order to unite them, we're supposed to put together something, and the something they're supposed to do is allow place for Hashem. How are they supposed to do it? Limiting themselves. This is what Rav Sacks, if I summarized in several of his teachings, refers to answering this question about why Torah elaborates so much in so much detail about the Mishkan. And then his final sentence, which I quoted here, is that this is a teaching for us in life. The happiest marriages are those in which each spouse make for the other to be his or herself. From here, from this sentence, I would like to share with you some thoughts that I've had in the last few years about the portions of the Mishkan to this concept that the happiest marriages are those in which each spouse makes space for other to be his or herself, and the connection between the Mishkan and the concept of marriage. When the Mishkan, we're actually building a home for Hashem, but Rav Sacks connects the idea of building a home to marriage. And here is a point which I would like to point out. The question about the Mishkan is repeated again and again. So many people ask the question, the Mishkan, so detailed. Why does the Mishkan have so many details, going to every single detail again and again? And why so length? And I wanted to ask a question. There are other places in the Tanakh that things are brought in very, very detail, but I never saw anybody. Why it's so much detail? I want to read with you a few psukim from a famous book in the Tanakh, which is one of the most detailed books in the Tanakh, and nobody asks ever why it's so detailed. Listen to Hinach Yafa Ra'ayati. I'm reading in the book of Song of Songs, chapter 4. You are beautiful, my darling. Your eyes are behind your veil. Your hair is like a flock of goats streaming down Mount Gilad. Your teeth are like a flock of ewes climbing up from the washing pool. Them bear twins, and not one loses her young. Your lips are like crimson thread. Your mouth is lovely. Your brow behind your veil like a pomegranate split open. Your neck is like the Tower of David built to hold weapons. Shields, all the quivers of warriors. Your breasts are like two fawns, twins of gazelle, browsing among the lilies. When the day blows gently and the shadows flee, I will take me to the mountain myrrh, to the hill of frankincense. Every part of you is fair, my darling. So many details. He doesn't say, the lover does not say to his wife, to his beloved wife or his beloved fiance, he does not say, you're just beautiful. He goes, so many details. Why? And there, nobody asks, why is there so many details? Because everybody understands that we're talking about a love story. A love story, you don't just say, you're so beautiful. You go into details. And I want to share with you some very interesting points, which I've seen lately in the portion of the Mishkan. The portion of the Mishkan begin 5 Parashat Truma. Daber el bnei Yisrael v'yikhuli Truma. Speak to the people of Israel and tell them they should take for me. They should take from me contributions. They should take from me from every single person. Me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libot yikhu et trumati. And many people ask, it should not be v'yikhu. It should not be take. It should be give. That you want to tell the people of Israel to give contributions, not to take contributions. And there have been many, many answers that have been given to this question. I wanted to maybe the word v'yikhu li truma, when Bnei Israel should take truma, should take and the gifts, comes from the play on words. V'yikhu li. When do we have in the Tanakh to take for, lakachat le, v'yikhu le, always talking about women taking a wife? It says already in chapter 4 of the book of Genesis, vayikach lo lemech shtei nashim, vayikach lo. It says afterwards in chapter Reshit Perek Vav, when we're talking about the Anshe Hashem, the giants, vayikhu lahem nashim. So too, in the book of Judges, chapter 4, says Shimshon, Samson, to his parents, please take her for me as a wife. And then the same thing when Yitzchak and Rivka send Yaakov to go look for a wife. Lakachat lo misham isha And when Yitzchak takes Rivka, bekachto et Rivka, vahi Yitzchak ben 40 shana, bekachto et Rivka, when he takes lo kachat le, the word verb of using to take for is always, or almost always, 99% of the time, it's taking for a wife. Let's try another example. Every one of the vessels have something that, for me, my first association is something interesting. It happens when we're talking about the Aron, already in Shmot, Perek Kafei, the first vessel, the very first vessel is the Aron, and it says, Ve'asu Aron Atzei Shitim. I'm reading the chapter 25, Kafei, Pasuk Yud, Atzei Shitim, and it goes on in Pasuk Yud Bet, Ve'yatzakta lo arba tabeot zahav. It has 4 rings. And then it goes on, you should take Ve'veita et badim. And so not only the Aron has tabaot, rings or on the shulchan, and on the mizbeach, and on the mizbeach haktoret, rings. For me, when I hear the word rings, one of my first associations is marriage. If you're not convinced yet, let's go on. The word vikidashin, again, when we're talking about kiddushin, but also here in the Torah, vikidashta otam, vilbashta et Aron achicha vet banav ito, at the end in the Parsha, when Moshe is to prepare and dress his brother Aaron, and the Torah says specifically, it says vilbashta otam, the vessel, the vestments. And I'm reading in chapter Shmot, Perek Kaftet, Pasuk Mem Aleph, chapter Kaftet, Pasuk 41, and you put these on your brother and on his son, anoint them and ordain him, and consecrate them. V'kidashta otam. The word lekadesh, the same thing happens when he takes the zeh zavar shetaseh lahem lekadesh otam. And not only do we lekadesh, also v'kidashti et oel moed v'tamizbeach. The word lekadesh, which is used in our language definitely for kiddushin, for something you do when you Dashta appears in the Mishkan several times. But let's go on. The word laset. What does the word laset mean? It's very interesting. The word laset, which in the Torah refering to carrying the vessels. For instance, about the Aron in chapter Kafhei, in chapter 14, chapter Kafhei, Pasuk Yud, and they insert the poles into the rings on the side walls for carrying the ark. But what is the word used for carrying? Laset. And laset is a word we use to get married. Laset isha. The word laset appears again and again. It appears on the shulchan, and it appears in every one of the kelim. Now it's interesting. I'll tell you a very interesting thing. When in the ketubah, when we have a ketubah, and we get married, what are we obligating? What are we declaring that a man does to his wife? It says, I will respect her, and I will. And one of the words used is va'as sover. Va'as sover means I will raise her. Unculus. When he a few times the word laset, it's va'as sover. The word lasover. Now, here in the portions of the Mishkan, usually unculus translates, which means to carry. But actually, when for instance, in Parshat Yitro, when Yitro is telling to take care of the people and to bring their issues to Hashem, he says in chapter Shmot Yutet, and they carried with you. Or it says in Dvarim, when Moshe was saying it's hard for me, Echa esa levadi. In both these cases, uncle is translated sovar, the verb sovar, which means not only to carry, but to raise, to pick up. In the concept of sovar in the ketubah, there are different explanations what it means. Some people explain be nice to her. Some people say it comes from svara, I will try to understand her. But the actual concept of as-sovar means to pick her up. The concept is when both sides are picking each other up, are raising each other, not just the word. So the concept, very often we hear people get divorced and listen, we separated, each one of the whole concept of marriage is when we're picking each other up. And the word laseit, when we carry the Mishkan, we're picking it up and we're also picking ourselves up. But let's continue more concepts that have to do with it. The word about the kruvim, listen carefully. It says v'hayu hakruvim, porsei knafayim lemala. It's also in chapter 25 when the Aron, the first kli that we build is the Aron. The second kli is the kaporet. What is the kaporet? The kaporet consists of two kruvim, shnayim kruvim. I'm reading in Shmot, Perek Kafei, Parshat Truma. Shnayim kruvim zahav, mikshat ta'aseotam. You make them in one piece. And then, in Pasuk Kaf, porsei knafayim lemala. They should raise their wings on top. Sochechim bechanfehem ala kaporet. Covering with their wings on the kaporet. What is the word porsei knafayim? Very simple. Porsei knafayim appears Ruth, and when Ruth says to Boaz in chapter 3, she says, "Ufarasta knafecha al amatecha." Please raise your wings upon your mistress, and that Ruth says. And the same thing happens in Yechezkel. In Yechezkel Tetzayin, when the description of how Hashem picks Am Yisrael out of Egypt, and He refers to them as offering as a wife. Va'ifros knafay alayich. The word lifros knafayim is used in the Tanakh as a marriage. Let's continue on. Tzela, the word tzela in the Mishkan, the word tzela in the Tanakh appears in circumstances. One is in the Mishkan and the Mikdash. Letzela hamishkan hashinit lifat tzafon esrim karesh. When it's talking about the boards of it says litzala and it's tzela, and also not only Mishkan. V'uvayit badav v'davayu abadim al shtei tzalot hamizbeach. The badim are on two of the mizbeach. Tzalot hamizbeach. That is the word that's used. Tzalot. And where else do we have the word tzela? I'm sure you all. This, as I said, these psukim are from Perek Kavav, Letzela HaMishkan, Lefat Tzafon Esrim Karesh. On the other side, the word side is used here, tzela. Where else do we find the word? Of course, we all remember in Breshit chapter 2, when Hashem takes a side of man, it says, Vayapel Adonai Elohim. I'm reading in chapter 2 of Breshit, Pasuk Kaf Aleph, and Hashem put a deep sleep upon man, and he tzela vayikach achat mitzalotav vayizgor basar tachtena. He takes one of his ribs and he makes a isha. So the word tzela appears only in the concept where a person is to leave his father and mother and clung v'davak b'ishto v'hayu levasar echad. Let's continue on. The word that appears again and again, that refers to the whole Mishkan, it becomes one. It's united. It's connected. It appears again and again. Again and again. I'll read just a few of these examples. V'yu to'amim milamata. V'yachdav. To'amim. Yachdav. They should be connected. Again, when it turns about the curtains. Chamesh ha'yiriyot tiena chovrot. Connected. Yishal v'chamesh yiriyot chovrot. Connected. Listen carefully to this one. Shtei yadot, two hands. L'keresh ha'echad meshulavot. Two hands that are hand in hand. Shtei yadot l'keresh achad el achad. The Mishkan, on the bottom of the keresh, there's something that's called yadot. Yadot, of course, is usually sort of these things that stick out on the bottom of the keresh. It's usually a plank, has two tenons, but the word yadot means hands. Two hand by hand. What is stronger than that, than talking about husband and wife? And listen to this one. Ve'asita 50 karsei zahav ve'haya hamishkan echad. There's only one other place in the Torah that it refers to, says ve'haya echad. Of course, we go back to the Parshiyot aviv v'imo. A person should leave his father and mother and clung to his wife. Ve'hayu lebasar echad. Ve'haya hamishkan echad. Ve'hayu lebasar echad. The between the parts of the Mishkan and the concept of Hashem are always, again and again, reminding us of the relationship between man and wife. Let's go on. And we'll read this week's parsha. In this week's parsha, Parashat Vayakhel, at the end of the parsha, the very end of the parsha, it says, "V'ha'adanim la'amudim v'chashukeihem kesef." And then it says, "Mechushakim kesef." Mechushakim. Listen to the word mechushakim. The word mechush, of course, it's translated here, banded with silver, but the word mechushak comes from the word cheshek. The cheshek, of course, is a word that expresses more person has to a wife. It's quoted, as I said in the two psukim that are here, when a person takes a woman in the war, in Pashat Ki Tetzeh, v'chashakta ba. It's talking about this cheshek shlomo, there's a pasuk, and of course, the love to Hashem, be'avotecha chashak Hashem la'avatam. The word cheshek is an expression of love. So what? Mechushakim v'chashukeihem. Is there anything stronger than love than the word cheshek? And the word together with the word kesef, kisufim. What is kisufim if not striving, missing the love between husband and wife? Chashukeihem. All of these words express a concept of love between husband and wife, are hinted again and again in the story of the Mishkan. Now look at this one. Ohel moed. What does the word moed mean? Moed means, moed is time. Moadim l'simcha, moed, what time, when are we going to meet? At a certain time, moed, we set up a time. Moed is a time. What else is moed? The word moed also refers to meeting, from the word lihivaed, this is the place, that's why it's always translated ohel moed, tent meeting. There's a word in English which has both those meanings. There's only one name and meaning. If you ask me, the word date. The word date is a time, it's a date. What's today's date? And it's also a meaning. You're going out on a date. So Ohel Moed is that we are on a date with Hashem in Ohel Moed. If we look back at what we have seen so far, and I really, we could have referred to every one of these examples as a coincidence, and every one of these examples could have been a coincidence. But if we see all of these things, and at the end of the Mishkan, we have Shivat Yimei HaMiluim. Before, I'm not even talking about changing clothes, getting ready. Who's going to orech the kiddushin? It says Yaroch Oto Aharon. So we're getting ready for a wonderful thing. What else if not a marriage? The whole concept of reading the Parshiyot HaMishkan and the details that we have in the Parshiyot HaMishkan that are still read them as something that's really a nuisance. They're so long. They're taking so many words. It's a nuisance. But if we read this whole thing as a love, reading a love story between Am Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I think that every one of these examples that I went to, and I just want to go over them once again, and we'll see what we have here. We have v'yikhuli, which is a phrase that is only used for taking a wife. We have the word tabaot, rings, which is something that we use till this very day for weddings. We have the word v'kidashta, which we do kiddushin when we get married. Getting married is Masechet Kiddushin. We have the word laset, v'nisabam, which repeats, which is also a word used to marry women. For instance, I just remember the pasuk in Ruth, vayis'u lahem nashim nochroyot, and they married Gentile women. But also the word laset, Nisuin is the idea of Hashem putting his wings over us, and their kruvim putting the wings over the Torah. And the connection between the Aaron also as a love story. The word tzela, which talks about the taking the wife, taking the rib, the side of man to create it with the wife. The ideas of unit so many different ways in the Torah. Tomim, to'amim, yachdab, vechibarta, meshulavot, yadot, two hands, one in each other. Every one of these examples, the word chakim, vachashukehem, together with the word kesef, which is kisufim. Every one of these words, and when I listen to them and I hear them being spoken, I hear the words of to Hashem, the word that the Mishkan is not something that is too detailed, because every one of those these Parshiyot would be over already. They're Parshiyot that we can read them in a totally different way. I want to recommend that when we read the Psukim this week, Pesukim of the Mishnah, of the Torah, of the Mishkan, instead of reading them and saying, oh my God, there's so many details, why don't we try to read them a little differently? Why don't we try to read them with a wedding? Why don't we try to read them Chelet, Argaman, Tolat Sheni, Shesh, Shemen Lamaor, V'samim Shemen HaMishcha, read the details of every one of them. Orech HaYiri'ah HaEchat. When a person measures the curtains in his bedroom, when he goes out to the shopping and he buys himself a cover for his bed, we go out and we look at every single one of the details. Yes, we're interested in that. We are interested in every single one of those details because, and there are a few other examples I didn't even bring because I didn't want it to be too long, but the word bayit, which appears again and again in the Mishkan, mi bayit u'michutz, l'tzapenu v'aya levadim, the word of a house, which is a basic thing in the Mishkan. The idea of bayit, a house, and many other examples. But I think, and this is something that I think that is so strong here, the Torah refers to the relationship between Hashem and Am Yisrael in a marriage, building a house as a relationship between marriage. The Medrash says about Shlomo HaMelech, B'yom chatunato, b'yom simchat libo. Yom chatunato ze ma'amad har Sinai. Yom simchat libo ze binyan hamikdash. The Zohar refers to the whole concept of Moshe and Aaron, and the Zohar uses this word. It says Moshe shoshvin de malka ve'Aaron shoshvin de am Yisrael. So when we're talking about shoshvinim, who are the shidduch makers? Who are those who are representing us? Moshe Rabbeinu represents Hashem. Aaron represents Am Yisrael. The whole idea of the holiest place in the world as the house of Hashem is also an idea with Hashem as a relationship of marriage. And this brings me back to the final sentence that Rav Sacks had said. The happiest marriages are those in which each spouse makes space for the other one to be his or herself. When we allow, and this is what home is, to not just to put yourself in there. And when we build these vessels, it's not to show what we can do. It's what we can others is to allow place for the love in the marriage. When we are dealing, then and when I'm dealing today, rebuilding of a Beit Mikdash, and when I'm dealing with in Amitzim, the Israel Organization for Young Widows and Orphans, we're dealing with families that have gone through destruction of a house, destruction of a family. And what is the most important thing we're doing? We're trying to bet about lasset. Lasset is when in a marriage, when every side is trying to pick up the other side and to raise him as high as possible and to put him as high as possible. The marriage, and this is the concept what we're trying to do. We want, in building a mikdash, when we talk about rebuilding means taking the basic tenets, the basic foundations of what was there and was destructed, and to rebuild them using the present reality, using the most basic covenant, the basic love. And this is and the same thing we do with these families who've lost a spouse or lost a parent. Young ladies that have lost a spouse, and what is happening to them? They're collapsing. And what we do in HaChevra is we try to pick them up. We try to do whatever we can. We will never be like the way. We can never be like a father or a mother. We can't replace a father or a mother. What we can do is take the family and try to pick up the falling house. And this is the concept of Mikdash. The concept of Mikdash is that we are creating a relationship with Hashem. And the basic idea of creating a relationship, if all of Am Yisrael does it together, we unite together to do it, and also we remember. We are doing something to allow place for Hashem, which means, as Rabbi Sacks said, we're making space for the other to be his or herself. We're trying to do, or as somebody once said, I was at somewhere lately, somebody said they were each other, a rabbi and a Christian priest, and the rabbi says, listen, we believe that everybody should worship God. You worship him your way, and we worship him his way. And I think that our mission in the world is to worship Hashem his way, meaning to try to be whatever Hashem wants for us, to allow us to raise Hashem world. If we say to repair the Migdal Bavel, the Babylonian tower, where they were Naaseh Lanu Shem, they were making a shame, a name for themselves. Our job as descendants of Avraham Avinu and Yaakov, who their idea was to sanctify God's name in the world, so too, when we go ahead and build a Mishkan, we are actually by Hashem's name in the world. And how does it happen? The great idea of Hashem being a relationship so intimate, so like a marriage. The love between Hashem and Am Yisrael, and the love that we can have to Hashem, is by allowing to make space for Hashem, so that then we can, each part of the deal, each part of the covenant will be sanctified, and maybe we will be all privileged and zoche to be able to rebuild the Beit Mikdash if we recall and understand that we are here to serve Hashem. We are here working for him and not him working. This should happen, and we will be able to bring the world the concept of shalom, which is God's name. House of Hashem in Yerushalayim, Beiti Beit Tfilah, will be a house of prayer for all nations, as Prophet Yeshayahu prophesies. I didn't didn't look at the chat if anybody had questions or something wanted to ask, but I hope the idea was able to, and you got to see the presentation, and the message and the idea was clearly understood.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Glick, for your inspirational, fascinating look at the Parshiyot of the Mishkan. And also one of Hashem's other names, of course, is HaMakom, the space. So that's the holiness of the space that we make for Hashem is, of course, the Makom. It's the place of the Beit HaMikdash, of the Mishkan. So thank you again, Rabbi Glick. And next week, we look forward to hearing from Rabbi Racheli Frankel on the gift of Judaism to mankind. So that's next Sunday, same time, same place. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you then. Shavua Tov.